Hello everyone, welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to explore with you how the groups we belong to shape who we are and how we see the world. The title of our talk is Exploring How the Groups We Belong to Shape Who We Are and How We See the World, and the subtitle is Who Am I? Understanding Social Identity Theory. Over the next few slides, we'll dive into what social identity is, why it matters, and how it influences our everyday lives. Let's get started. Social Identity Theory, or SIT, explains how our group affiliations become a crucial part of who we are. Sometimes we underestimate just how much these group ties influence our identity. We all find ourselves asking, "Who am I?" And the truth is, there's no simple answer. Our sense of self is shaped by a mix of personal traits, our individual qualities, and the groups we belong to, like our family, friends, or even social communities. This brings us to the core question: how do we define ourselves? It's a complex process because our identities aren't just about who we are alone, but also about how we see ourselves within these groups. So, understanding how group memberships influence us helps us see the bigger picture of our identity, which ties directly into the overall theme of this presentation: how social factors shape individual behavior and self-perception. So, the core insight here is that a significant part of how we see ourselves actually comes from the groups we belong to. It's not just about our individual traits or personal qualities, but also about the social groups that shape our identity. This idea was developed by Henry Tadgeful and John Turner back in the 1970s, and it gave rise to what we now call social identity theory. Their work was groundbreaking because it showed that even when group assignments are completely arbitrary, like randomly being assigned to a team or a group, people still tend to favor their own group. This in-group favoritism reveals just how powerful group membership can be in defining who we are. So, in the context of this presentation, understanding how social groups influence our self-concept is crucial for grasping the broader dynamics of social behavior and identity. Now, let's look at the 3 pillars of social identity theory. First, social categorization. This is where we naturally sort ourselves and others into social groups like nationality, profession, or hobbies. It helps us make sense of the complex social world around us by creating manageable categories. Next, we have social identification. Once we've categorized ourselves into a group, we tend to adopt that group's identity. We internalize their norms, values, and behaviors, making them part of our own sense of self. Finally, social comparison. After identifying with a group, we often compare our in-group to out-groups. We tend to view our in-group favorably, which boosts our self-esteem and helps us maintain a positive social identity. Together, these 3 pillars, categorization, identification, and comparison, form the core framework of social identity theory, helping us understand how our social groups influence our self-concept and behavior. Now, let's explore how our social identities help us find our place within a larger community. First, there's identity itself. When we take pride in our group's achievements, it really boosts our self-esteem and makes us feel good about who we are. Next is self-worth. Shared goals give us a sense of direction. They help us see where we're headed and what we're working toward together. It's about feeling aligned with something bigger than ourselves. Then we have purpose. Connection and unity are key here. When we feel connected to others, it reduces feelings of isolation and helps us find meaning in our relationships and our roles. Finally, belonging. Being part of a group fulfills some of our deepest psychological needs. It's about feeling accepted and valued, which reinforces our sense of being part of something important. All of these elements, identity, self-worth, purpose, and belonging, highlight the power of social connections. They remind us that our social identities give us strength, support, and a sense of place within the larger community. This sense of belonging truly is a fundamental human need. So this isn't always about prejudice in the negative sense. Often, it's actually a cognitive process that our minds use to maintain a positive social identity. Essentially, our brains are wired to categorize and support our groups to help us feel connected and secure. One key concept here is in-group favoritism. This means we naturally prefer and support members of our own group, often without even realizing it. It's a subconscious tendency to see our group as better or more deserving. On the flip side, outgroup discrimination happens when we view or treat other groups less favorably. Sometimes, this is a way to boost our own group's status, to make ourselves feel more secure or superior. Once we identify strongly with a group, our minds tend to draw boundaries. These boundaries shape how we perceive others and influence how we treat them, sometimes unfairly. The important thing to remember is that these tendencies, favoritism towards our in-group and discrimination against outgroups, are natural cognitive processes. They play a role in how social identities are formed and maintained, which ties back to the overall theme of understanding human behavior and social dynamics. Social categorization and identification happen almost automatically, which is a core feature of how we process social information. It's something we're wired to do, quickly sorting people into groups, often without even realizing it. The key takeaway here is that, despite this automatic tendency, people tend to give more resources and goodwill to their own group. This favoritism happens even when the groupings are completely arbitrary. For example, groups can be formed with no meaningful criteria, no shared history, no personal benefit at stake. In Tajfel's landmark experiments, participants were divided into groups based on trivial preferences, like which abstract painting they liked more. It's fascinating because these divisions were meaningless, yet they still triggered favoritism. This idea is what we call the minimal group studies, and they are quite shocking in their simplicity. The research clearly shows that even minimal, superficial distinctions are enough to create in-group bias. This highlights just how powerful and automatic our tendencies toward favoritism really are, connecting directly to the broader theme of how easily bias can be formed, even without real stakes involved. Let's take a closer look at how social identity influences real-world behaviors and decisions. For instance, brand loyalty and group-based purchasing choices are often driven more by social identity than by the actual quality of the product. People tend to buy from brands that reflect their group membership or social group, reinforcing their sense of belonging. In the workplace, team identities play a crucial role. They affect how we collaborate, compete, and communicate with each other. Our sense of belonging to a team shapes our behavior and interactions daily. On a larger scale, tensions between nations, ethnic groups, and political parties often stem from competing social identities. These identities can create conflicts that are rooted deeply in how groups see themselves and others. Social identity theory also explains how biases and assumptions about different groups form and tend to persist over time. These stereotypes can influence our perceptions and behaviors in subtle yet powerful ways, often without us realizing it. So, understanding these concepts helps us see the real-world impact of social identity, how it shapes behaviors across different contexts, and why it's so important to consider in our efforts to foster better collaboration and reduce conflict. Now, let's look at how our sense of identity can shift depending on the situation. For example, a person might see themselves mainly as a professional at work, but during a major sporting event, they might identify more as a proud national citizen. And at a school meeting, they might primarily see themselves as a parent. Each of these contexts activates a different layer of who we are. When an aspect of our identity is threatened, we tend to rally around it even more strongly. It's like a protective response. On the other hand, when there's an opportunity to boost our group's status, we're motivated to act in ways that reinforce that membership. What's interesting is that all these identities, whether we're a student, an athlete, a colleague, they can coexist and become more or less prominent depending on the situation. Our social identities are not fixed. They fluctuate. The key idea here is that the salience or importance of a particular identity really depends on the context we're in. So remember, context matters a lot. It influences which aspect of ourselves we bring to the forefront at any given moment, shaping our behavior and interactions accordingly. Understanding our awareness of in-group and out-group biases is really the first step toward creating a more empathetic environment. When we recognize these biases, we're better equipped to reduce conflicts and promote inclusion. It's about seeing beyond our immediate groups and understanding the underlying dynamics at play. This awareness helps us improve intergroup relations because it sheds light on why we might think or act a certain way in social situations. Recognizing these patterns allows us to approach others with more understanding and less judgment. On a deeper level, social identity theory shows us how much our group memberships, whether they're based on race, gender, profession, or other affiliations, shape our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Often, these influences happen without us even realizing it. And that's why understanding our social identity is a continuous journey. It's not a one-time realization, but an ongoing process of self-awareness and reflection. By staying conscious of these influences, we can foster better relationships, reduce biases, and build communities where everyone feels valued and included. All of this ties back to the overall theme of the presentation: the importance of self-awareness and understanding others in creating a more inclusive and harmonious social environment.